In my 12 years as a criminal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Thank you. Your Honor, in my 12 years as a criminal defense attorney, I often find that addressing the court on sentencing, whether it be in order to advocate for a client for a plea or after a trial, is the most difficult of my jobs. And that's because the court is often looking at a person and looking at their worst moment, and not their best. And a person has a whole lifetime of experiences that leads to that moment for which the court dispenses punishment. And I think in this case, rather than, and more so than other cases that I have advocated for clients on, that's extremely apparent. We can't forget what Mr. Pessoa has done in his life. And this one moment doesn't define who Mr. Pessoa is, who he is going to be, or even all of who he was. You've had an opportunity to read numerous character reference letters from family members, friends, fellow officers, a principal that saw Mr. Pessoa in high school, all of whom describe who Mr. Pessoa is as a person. And they use words like integrity, selfless, humble. And they describe situations in Mr. Pessoa helping those who are less fortunate and had been less fortunate than Mr. Pessoa. Going out and buying Christmas gifts, helping with turkey drives, things that his job did not necessitate him to do. But that's who Mr. Pessoa is. And that's who Mr. Pessoa will continue to be. And that's who his family is. And that's who they will continue to be. The court is aware of the sentencing guideline ranges in this case, and aware that in Massachusetts, unlike in other systems like the federal systems, they're advisory. And as spelled out in the sentencing memorandum that we presented to the court, Mr. Pessoa falls in a discretionary zone of the sentencing guidelines, which allows Your Honor to impose any sentence that Your Honor feels is reasonable, not more than necessary, in order to punish Mr. Pessoa for the actions of February 12, 2019, and to meet all the other purposes of sentencing: general deterrence, specific deterrence, rehabilitation, retribution, can all be considered in determining the appropriate sentence. In any event, the sentencing guidelines call for a range of 1 to 3 years incarceration should Your Honor feel that incarceration be necessary. It's the defendant's position and the defense's position that Mr. Pessoa has suffered a tremendous loss already. He has lost his identity as a police officer because of this conviction, an identity that he will never get back. He worked for 18 and a half years as a police officer earning a pension. That pension has been lost. You've read in his character reference letters how much those things meant to him. And not the monetary things, Your Honor. I mean, that's second to Mr. Pessoa. But that idea of helping people is really what brought Mr. Pessoa into the line of duty. And that remains important to him. And I've seen it personally over the course of the 2 years that I've known Mr. Pessoa personally. He's the first person to lend a helping hand. The first person to ask if you're okay. The first person to offer help. And that was what was referenced over and over and over again in his character reference letters. I'd suggest to Your Honor that certainly this case is serious. The impact on society is great. There has been a lot of press in this case, all of which puts a whole different spin on this criminal case than most criminal cases. But at the end of the day, what stands before Your Honor is a man, Mr. Pessoa. And your sentence is going to greatly impact not only him, but all the people sitting in that audience: his fiancé, his parents, his younger brother, his nieces, all of the adopted children, nieces and nephews and friends, godchildren that have been written about in those character references. No matter the sentence, the impact will be great. And the impact should be great, Your Honor, because they're serious cases, serious convictions. And the defense understands that. The defense also understands that Mr. Pessoa is going to go into a system which is going to treat him differently because of his role as a former police officer. And that can't be taken lightly either. And when Your Honor is fashioning a sentence, part of the reason for the request of a house arrest instead of some incarcerated time for Mr. Pessoa is exactly the safety issues that Mr. Pessoa may face if incarcerated in any capacity. Certainly the concern is greater in the state prison system, where the people who have been sentenced there necessarily have either committed more serious acts or have a more serious record, have a greater disregard for our criminal laws, and are more likely to put Mr. Pessoa in danger. Mr. Pessoa deserves to be sentenced like any other criminal defendant. He deserves to be sentenced justly and not more than necessary to fit the crime. Should Your Honor consider a sentence of incarceration, we pray that you do so to the House of Correction, where Mr. Pessoa will be safer, dealing with lower-level offenders around him, and less in fear for his personal safety. However, the defense suggests to the court that a period of house arrest in which he cannot leave his home, he is on a 24/7-hour lockdown, with a period of probation from and after that could step down after that, is an appropriate sentence when considering the fact that, quite frankly, there's no specific deterrence in this case, Your Honor. Mr. Pessoa will never be a police officer again. He'll never be in a position to use excessive use of force again. In terms of general deterrence, you see officers sitting in the courtroom, you've seen them sitting in the courtroom throughout the course of the trial. I think the message has been sent that their actions are under fire, they're going to be watched, and if they step out of line, there are going to be significant and serious consequences, to include criminal prosecution, loss of pensions, loss of jobs, and loss of their identity as well. With all that being said, Your Honor, we pray that you sentence him according to our recommendation of 3 years of probation, 1 year of house arrest, 2 years following whatever conditions Your Honor sees fit.